This idea of inclusion, one, is it reasonable, and number two, is it doable?
I think the unfortunate thing is the levels of political literacy being very low in our country, such that it's very easy to fool people that you're talking about something that concerns them, when really what you are discussing in their presence is against them. And they cheer you when you are doing that. When you talk about inclusion, it's basically about sharing of spoils and balance of power, but within a small group of people, not for the country, which every country needs. Actually, keep having these discussions on always making sure that power is balanced, across the country in very many different ways. But the discussion being put on the table in our presence, and some of us cheer, is about a small group of people haggling over who gets what and who retains what kind of power, so that they all together continue oppressing us. Precisely. What we should have been discussing is how citizens shift the excessive amounts of power that are hoarded by the executive and by politicians to citizens through their various institutions of representation, and also directly to them, so that at any one point, if they've ceded power to some institution, county assembly, some commission, or the executive, and they're unhappy, they can recall it. And there are many, many ways of doing that. But right now, the balance is so terribly skewed in favor of this small elitist group that we are forced to just sit by and watch them as they haggle over who between them, not amongst citizens, but between them gets what. And you know what? I've been watching, sometimes I've had mixed feelings about this handshake thing in building bridges, but I think there's a lot of good things in it. And one of which that I'm so certain that I don't doubt is the message. I hope all of us are deciphering it the same way, is the message it's sending us, that it's possible in one handshake to erase this thing of the Raila people and Kenyatta people and Ruto people, that Raila, Kenyatta, Ruto, and I don't know who else can sit together and decide, we will make this decision for ourselves and we don't care what you think. We will raise fuel prices, we will impose this housing thing on you, we will tell you must go for Huduma number. We can agree, Raila, Kenyatta, Ruto, they can agree so easily. And it stops making, you know how we had this NASA people and Jubilee people on this side, and if Kenyatta makes decisions, they're good for Jubilee people. If Raila makes decisions, they're good for NASA people. Now, they've done a very good thing to show us that Raila and Kenyatta and Ruto and whoever else can actually come together and make decisions that are good, not for anybody else other than themselves. And the consequences of these decisions, exactly the same on the so-called Raila people, Ruto people, Kenyatta people. So this thing of inclusion is, again, we're having the wrong debate. It's about a small group of people. That you tell me that if some lawyer sits there, then my life is sorted? If they give a position to a lawyer, that my life is completely sorted? No. It is how I participate in governance and public decision-making and development processes.
That's what makes sense.
Yes, it's the power that I as a citizen can have to force those who are in charge of the state to respect, for example, just one thing, devolution, and do the right things to make it work. That this power, I can exercise it in many ways, including in the ways that they accuse, what is this young man, Boniface Mwangi, of. That those are legitimate ways, going to the streets, demonstrating, public demonstrations. Those are constitutional, legitimate ways of putting the fear of God in these people, so that they realize that these citizens have the power to tell us, to stop us when we are oppressing them.
Allow me to interrupt you. Back in 2017, you played a crucial role in NASA as a strategist. I'm sure then, I don't know about now, you had quite some access to Honorable Raila Odinga. His party has been fronting for a referendum as part of the question that we've asked today. My question to you is, have you shared those thoughts that you have with him? Yeah, we do share this. Yeah, we do share, and his party is my party, actually. His party is okay. I didn't know that. I didn't want to assume. I might make the assumption. Yes. So, and we do share this sentiments, these views within the mechanisms of the party and other forums that bring us together. But obviously, as you hear me speak, and many people have heard me speak in different public forums, there are things on which we differ. And this is why I say people must realize there are no Raila people or Kenyatta people. That we had very popular as NASA, not just as ODM, as NASA.
we had what I still believe were very popular proposals on what we can change in terms of how we manage this country economically, resource management and so on, which suddenly, you know, our leaders are not making reference to.
Okay.
You know,
I think which brings us to a very good point right now in the conversation, that right now the country is at the point where we want to look at the entire electoral process. Time for change. If it's not a place where it's them versus us, where we now you mentioned about South Africa and Nigeria and other countries that have gone through an electoral cycle so peacefully, then is it time for us to look at a place where we change our entire electoral infrastructure in terms of not looking at individuals, but maybe looking at political parties. And that's what we saw in South Africa. Their way of doing electioneering is using proportional representation, yeah, where you're voting for political parties. The party that has the highest number is the ruling party, and you see, it almost goes seamlessly. Isn't it time for us to start having this conversation right now? Because we're actually in an electoral cycle, 2017, 2022, where we're still seeing, first and foremost, the management body just has a lack of quorum. Yes. It's doing by-elections, it's doing whatever, then we're going to be, and therein lies the problem. Fixing those issues.
Just allow me one sentence.
Yes, I wanted to bring in the issue.
Sorry, I wanted to give you a chance to finish.
Yeah, okay,
Have you finished?
I'll jump into his contribution.
We were actually taking a break before she came, but she introduced something interesting. I can give you a minute to
yes,
comment.
I wanted to talk about exclusion in, picking up from where, he left. Inclusion, exclusion is an issue in Kenya, and I particularly support the Building Bridges initiative because they identify these 9 issues. They are part of what really ails Kenya. But what makes the ordinary person feel excluded, it is when I'm not able to access government or services that I need to improve my life. It's not necessarily that I will see my political leader or ethnic kingpin, included in that particular equation, although that is what is normally used. The other thing is what you call dehumanizing poverty for Wanjiko, and that is why we need to isolate the issues that would have a direct impact on Mwananchi. So dehumanizing poverty is one of them, extreme feelings of exclusion. And part of it is because of geography, that you find if looking at maternal or infant mortality, maternal health, somebody in Mandera is at a disadvantage in terms of access, and that is why we needed this devolution to make sure that these services can get closer to the people. So in terms of referendum and the amendments that we are talking about, if it is about making sure that the ordinary person can get access to these services, what we are talking about, strengthening devolution, because I've heard that language, then those are things that I would definitely support. But when we simply look at inclusion or exclusion just in the context of leadership, now that is a process that is divorced, because in terms of that, the handshake, the one between Kibaki and Raila in 2008, and then the one between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila, it solves the problem at that level. But when it really matters, am I getting services? These same people will come and weaponize that, my feeling disgruntled with the fact that I'm not accessing government services. And somebody shows me that the problem actually is because Cynthia, and her community, they are my problem. That is why I'm not getting services. We weaponize that process and we find ourselves in the same slot. That is why I think understanding the issues clearly, and especially from Mwananchi's perspective, and you have seen from the SMSs and the messages that are coming through, we understand so that we fix those particular issues. And that is why I have a bit of hope with the Building Bridges initiative. If they could understand, have a broad view of these issues, and we try and have the national discussion that is talking about, so that by the time we get now to the place of amending the constitution, and if that will really help us fix. I would have wanted to say something about the elections, but maybe
we'll give you a final comment after the break.
Yes, we really do need to take a commercial break, but when we come back, we'll get the final thoughts of our panel and, of course, read some of your tweets and SMSs. Thank you so much for your feedback. Keep sending them in.
This is a discussion that I think would have taken a day, possibly a week, but we're trying to wrap this all up in the next 10 minutes. We'll give each of our panelists a chance to have their final thoughts. But thank you to everyone who's sending your messages in, whether on 22422 or on Twitter using the hashtag Daybreak. Let's take a look at some of them now.
All right, this is on Twitter. Sir, you say we need a referendum to 1, abolish Senate, 2, abolish women rep, 3, enforce the 2/3 gender rule, 1 term, a 7-year president. Number 5, enforce Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which talks on matters integrity. Put an import quota. Number 7, control foreigners taking jobs. And number 8, seizure of all of ill-gotten wealth.
My goodness, we did actually want to talk about Chapter 6. I don't know if we'll have time to do that now.
Wow.
Francis Kigondu, I would only support a referendum if it addresses 1, reduction of political officers, especially MCAs and senators. 2, deny bail for those charged with economic crimes or suspected of having committed economic crimes and corruption.
All right, this Lazaro, you say on Twitter, referendum is needed to reduce the burden of wage bills. We are overrepresented. Okay.
All right, Ben Rono, yes, it's only a matter of if. It's not a matter of if, but when. We only need to agree on the referendum question. What needs amendments? Okay, Ben, you tell us. What do you think?
Well, a few people already broken it down all the way to point 8.
Yep.
On SMS, Benny, you're watching from Nairobi. Good morning. You say, nicely put by the 2 gentlemen, Bobby and Simeha. We have to dig deeper into the substance of the Constitution to understand what's working or not and why. Review is definitely what is the most urgent at this moment. Diagnosis first.
And if I can add, I feel that that's the consensus of our panel this morning. That they've agreed on, if nothing else. Sasi from Lodwar, yes, we need a referendum. When you give birth to a child and later realize a problem, it's common sense to see our doctor. Our constitution has a problem, especially over-representation. Claiming that a referendum is expensive while daily we read of billions stolen is a lie. Politicians are lying to us to protect their interest. Let experts do it, not politicians.
All right, let's take a look at one more. Tyrus, you're watching from Mary. You say why the leaders don't implement laws that check their excesses and benefit Wajiko. If you listen to the politicians, the thing they talk about is the formula for sharing power positions at the top. In fact, the 2 powerful governors are like dinosaurs to Kenyans.
My goodness. Okay, we do have one more. Mugambwa from Fangano. We Kenyans are tired with our leaders because of their chameleonic changes and hunger for leadership. We need food, education, good health, etc. The messages are just coming in. Okay, so we have 2 more. You take one and I'll do the last one.
John, you're watching from Nairobi. Oh, yes, we need to relook at our constitution. The driver of this bus constitution took a wrong route and we are lost on the coast. We are blind. Corruption takes all our taxes and borrowed money. Again, very philosophical views there. Last one, you don't give us your name, but you say no. Just like in 2005, some leaders want this referendum to resuscitate them politically. This will give them momentum for 2022. All right, Zinzi, I think we get some last thoughts, and I want us to begin from the other end of the table. Bobby, I think let's start with you. What are your last thoughts on this, and something that you've kept emphasizing during the program? Dig deeper in this discussion.
Yes.
How do you want to take your final comment?
I think hopefully when the task force releases its report and with recommendations, it will open up a good, or give us a good platform now to debate the issues that we will proclaim as having come from Kenyans and what they feel Kenyans prodded as the problems or maybe even strengths, that we need to retain in the Constitution.
Because nobody's talking about that.
Exactly, the good things that we need to strengthen actually. So I think it's really during that time that we're going to be able to exhaust the issues substantively. But what I would recommend is that we as Kenyans are given ample time and also given beyond the task force declaration, we create a good framework within which now we can all ventilate, we can all discuss, we can all give our inputs around the proposals that the task force will have come up with. Again, not forgetting the other ventures that have been started. For instance, the Punguza Mzigo initiative. Like it or not, there might be crucial issues that need to be discussed around that. Going back to the Okoa Kenya initiative. So we need to look at it in summation of since the time we enacted or promulgated the Constitution and we've been using it, what are the issues that are sticking out, how do we objectively look at them, but also remember that it is the value and principles framework within the process that is most crucial. The give and take, consensus building principles are very important for Kenyans to understand why some issues in the constitution are there or not. If I may give an example, you see, when people talk about overrepresentation, sometimes the question is from what standpoint? Because, if, for instance, if you're a man, if you have, say, from a certain region or a certain community, you might be ably represented. But for other people in Kenya, that might not be the issue. They might be underrepresented. And that's why at times we have to look at these issues, even with opportunity cost, as to what makes Kenyans feel Kenyan. There are people who feel Kenyan and beyond the tangibles in terms of the services I'm getting, but also the substantive identity aspect is very important, and that's why facilities like the women reps seats, affirmative action programs for persons with disabilities, for youth, yes, abused, we have to admit, but they are there so that each and every Kenyan can feel, and I'm just using that as an example to show that when we are discussing these issues, we must discuss them within the value and principle framework of it's a give and take. We must respect and validate the views of each and every Kenyan, and at the end of the day, hopefully we'll come up with a refined conclusion. I wouldn't venture to preempt what might happen, but time for Kenyans to discuss a value and principle framework is very important beyond the current situation.
All right, Cynthia, what's on your mind? What's your closing statement? Please keep it briefly so we also give the other two colleagues a chance to also speak their mind.
Gosh, somehow I'm feeling like to go back into biblical scripture. Without vision, the people perish. What is the vision of this country? We have Vision 2030, and we've got 3 pillars that are anchored on that. And it seems like our whole focus is on the political pillar. There's the political pillar, the social pillar, the economic pillar. And the whole structure and discussion, and whichever way you're discussing referendum, is only on the political pillar. There are other pillars, and so we have to find a place, time, as Bobby is talking about, where we're looking at each of these pillars and how best do we want to move forward. It's like after we have had the Constitution promulgated, it is now how many years now?
8, 9?
8 years, 9, yeah. Like 9, when you're going into another meeting, you read the minutes, as he had alluded to, of the previous meeting, and what are the matters arising, and that's why we're coming into this referendum debate. 8 years after this Constitution, matters arising in the political pillar, in the social pillar, in the economic pillar, where we're not having Galana kind of pilot projects that are just thrown away, you know. All these are issues that we need to address in a referendum. Right now is the time. I don't know how much more time. We've got 2.5 more years to the next electoral cycle.
All right. So what is Kenya's vision?
This is the time. The vision is Vision 2030.
Vision Big 4?
Do you even still have
Vision Big 4? Vision referendum? Do you just want to stick and look at like all the comments that have come through the tweets and the SMSs? They're just looking at the political leaders, because these are the people. In the Constitution, the people take the supremacy. They donate their powers to their leaders in an election. Then the leaders then speak on behalf of them, and so they're looking up to this leader to give us direction. And what they're seeing is a place where there's mismanagement, and so they feel like these ones should go, these ones should come back to help us do this. And I think that is a very narrow way of looking at things.
Dr. Sam Kamau?
I would say going forward, we've agreed we need broad-based consultation, bring in all the voices, the politicians, the civil society, professional bodies, you know, bring in everybody. The other thing is we need a national discussion. We need to structure that. That is why I suggested the bombers, process to come and still, discuss these issues that are coming up. Number 3, listen to Wanjiku. I think the ordinary citizen has a clear idea of what they want and what they do not want. And in the end, we produce a harmonized view. I was going to say a harmonized draft. Something that harmonizes all these issues. But there's one thing that is really important, and I think the ordinary person keeps raising these. We actually want to see mechanisms that can help us deal with corruption, deal with the looting, the wastage that we have been seeing. I think this is something that has the support of the ordinary people. We don't need to weaponize this. So among the conversations that we're having, whether it's strengthening the different offices that can help us deal with this issue, because now we know it's not just arresting and taking people to court, it's a broader process. If in the conversation, we also look at strengthening those mechanisms so that leaders are held accountable. We are not seeing this wastage, and open theft. I think that's an important thing. Lastly, many of the issues that people are raising, they don't require a constitutional amendment or referendum. This is simply more effective and efficient government in terms of delivering these services to the people.
End of story. Panasimeha, you have the last word here. What will it be?
Thank you. My last word is first to use an analogy used by one of the viewers. I think they sent an SMS that if you have a child and
he's sick, you go see a doctor.
No, you didn't. Yeah, but I think if when you have a child and you see signals that suggest that there are problems with his or her health, you don't throw yourself into a frenzy saying that we need a surgical operation.
Diagnosis first. Yes,
you get into a frenzy that we need surgery. We need surgery now. The problem may be you're not feeding this child well. You just give the child. It could be a nutrition issue. So find out what is wrong with the child before you get into a ridiculous frenzy on what needs to happen to this child. That's where we are with our constitution. And whatever else happens in this country, we need to have an assessment of where we are, whether we have faithfully implemented this constitution and whether it has served us or not. And if it hasn't, why? Is it to blame, or the process of implementation, or ourselves? The second thing is what will we need to get there? With the current power relations, I doubt that even the wish list we are putting on the table here will get anywhere. With the current power relations, those who dominate power will continue to dominate this discussion. We will not listen to us. Well, they will listen to us, say that's interesting, but these technical guys, these strategists and so on can say those things, but they make the decisions. So with the current power balance, P&B for me. Yes, power balance in the country, we will not get there. This is why citizens need to realize and seize back this power. That threat to someone, again, one of your viewers earlier saying we don't need a referendum, we need a revolution. It ought to be. Well, if you define it,
so you're calling?
Yes, if you
for one,
especially if you define revolution in a sense, in the context of citizens realizing their power as given to themselves by themselves in their constitution, and saying that we donated it, but you are abusing it. We take it back so that we can redefine. We can agree again on how, if and when again we donate it, it should be used. That kind of revolution. It's not going to happen through the institutions of agency that are now controlled by those in power. That's why it leaves things like the streets as the options for prosecuting this kind of grievances, and citizens saying that you have abused this power, we'll take it back. And they ought to do it even beginning at the lower levels. Their county assemblies, their governors, test and say, no, what you are doing is wrong, we don't accept, and up to the national level. Finally, just one thing, which again, as I said earlier, should send a big signal to us why we need this redefinition of who holds what power. I never imagined in this country we will get to a point where my party leader, the Honorable Raila, would say, Huduma number needs to be made compulsory registration, where he would talk openly in public and say it like those who have gone to court, they don't know what they are doing and so on. Things that he fought for, freedoms that he fought for, that if I do not agree, I have various options to prosecute my grievances. One of them is court. It's not a sin to challenge government.
Against court, you get surprised as one of his supporters.
Not just as one of his supporters, as a public leader. And this is not the impact should just not be on we who share a party with him. It should be. I'm inviting all of us, that it should be on all of us to reflect. that this false dichotomy that has been in this country, that is those ones versus this one, it's a false one. The more they can break it with one handshake, and now it becomes them and all the rest of us in a different direction.
I think that's an interesting place to leave it. My goodness. Joseph Simeha, Executive Director, Inform Action, thank you for joining us. We also have had Dr. Sam Kamau, who's a media and communication scholar. Once again, asante sana. Cynthia Mutere, Women League Chair, Ford Kenya, thank you for finding time to be here with us this morning. And last but not least, Bobby Mkangi, a constitutional lawyer, asante sana once again. And to all our viewers, thank you for your feedback, including some which we're going to read right now.
Yeah, let's take that.
All right, what do we have on Twitter first?
Right, Twitter, Jackson. You say we are from Huduma, next census, then referendum, close to election. This exercise will cost the Mwananchi billions just to create seats for people. Avenues for drinking money.
I've never heard about drinking money. Okay, that's interesting. I heard of eating money. Orutwa Sam, the divide in referendum is divide in the interest by the interested who want the changes to suit their own objectives in politics, which is not public, but selfish. Almost poetic.
Okay.
All right.
Let's take a look at SMSs. 22422 is our SMS line, and that's where you can engage with us. David, you say referendum in Kenya is a political process. That's why we ended up with political parties as a result. This is not going to benefit Mwananchi, but will rather benefit the political game. All right.
You don't give us your name, but say referendum means nothing. Let's look first at the hard life that Kenyans are living. Okay, we have a few more.
Daniel Kitiku, you say yes, we should bring the harmonized draft produced by COE, which the politicians killed in Naivasha.
Okay, we actually talked a bit about that. Thank you so much. What a discussion we've had. I think we'll have more like this, even as the discussion continues. Try and dig deeper, beyond the headlines. What is actually happening in the core of what makes us all Kenyans, and what needs to be done. And that's how we wrap up this discussion. But the program isn't over.
No, it is not. Of course, this being a Thursday, Chef Ali is in the building, and we take this commercial break. We'll be back with breakfast tips. What are we making today? We'll have to find out, you and I both. So let's take that breather. Stay with us.